Some betrayals don't happen in the dark. They are performed in public, under the bright lights of a luxury restaurant. This is the story of a calculated public cruelty of a husband who looked a waitress in the eye and, referring to the woman carrying his children, said, "Don't serve her. She's just the surrogate." He believed it was the final move in his secret plan, a quiet dismissal before he disappeared to start a new life. He never imagined his wife, the brilliant doctor he had so foolishly underestimated, was about to walk through that very door, pushing a stroller with the twins he had no idea were already born. This isn't just a story of infidelity. It's a masterclass in whole justice. Dr. Evelyn Hayes had a life that looked like a perfectly curated magazine spread. Her sprawling home in a leafy Austin, Texas suburb, with its gleaming hardwood floors and floor-to-ceiling windows, was a testament to her success as a leading obstetrician at St. David's Medical Center. She spent her days surrounded by the miracle of new life. She held the hands of anxious mothers, calmed the fears of first-time fathers, and her skilled hands were often the first to welcome a new soul into the world. Her colleagues respected her, her patients adored her, and her husband, Mark Thompson, seemed to worship the ground she walked on. Mark was the other half of their golden couple image, a charismatic financial advisor with a portfolio of high-net-worth clients. He was handsome, attentive, and unfailingly supportive of Evelyn's demanding career. He'd be the one to have a gourmet dinner waiting when she came home late after a difficult delivery, a glass of her favorite Cabernet Sauvignon, already poured. He managed their finances with what she believed was meticulous care, assuring her their future was as bright and secure as their present. But beneath the polished surface of their life, a quiet, persistent ache throbbed. The one thing Evelyn's medical expertise and Mark's unwavering support couldn't grant them was a child of their own. Their journey had begun with optimism, a natural extension of their love. But a year turned into 2, then 5. The casual attempts gave way to the cold, sterile world of fertility clinics. Evelyn, the accomplished doctor, became just another patient, subjected to the same invasive tests, the same hormonal roller coasters, the same crushing disappointments she witnessed in her own practice. They went through 3 rounds of IVF, each one a universe of hope that collapsed into a black hole of grief. The final diagnosis was a gut-punch, unexplained infertility, a cruel medical shrug. It was Evelyn who finally tearfully uttered the word surrogacy. Mark was hesitant at first, or so he seemed. "Are you sure, Ev? It's a lot. Another person involved in something so intimate. Mark, I need this," she had whispered one night, her voice raw after another friend's baby announcement. "I need to be a mother. I see it every single day. I feel it in my bones. If this is the only way..." He held her, then stroking her hair. "Okay, honey. If this is what you need, then it's what we'll do. We're a team. We'll build our family no matter what it takes." The agency they chose was reputable, expensive, and thorough. It led them to Sarah Jenkins. Sarah was 28, a single mother to a bright 7-year-old boy named Leo. She worked as a teaching assistant, and her profile radiated a warmth and stability that instantly appealed to Evelyn. In their first video call, Sarah was nervous but direct. "I want to be clear about why I'm doing this," Sarah said, her hands clasped on the table in her small, tidy apartment. "My mum has early onset Alzheimer's. The care facility that can give her what she needs is... well, it's beyond my means. This compensation would change her life." And she added a genuine smile touching her lips. I love being pregnant. It was the happiest time of my life. The thought of being able to give that gift to someone who wants it so badly. It feels right." Evelyn's heart swelled with gratitude. She saw not a transaction but a partnership. Mark handled the financial and legal arrangements with his characteristic efficiency, setting up a trust for the payments and ensuring the contracts were ironclad. He called it the project, a term that made Evelyn flinch slightly, but she chalked it up to his business-oriented mind. The embryo transfer was successful on the first attempt. And then at the 6-week scan came the news that left them all breathless twins. Evelyn sobbed with joy, clutching Mark's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. 2 heartbeats, 2 tiny flickering lights on the screen. It was more than she had ever dared to dream. Mark was ecstatic, scooping her up in a hug and laughing. 2 for the price of 1. Ev, we hit the jackpot. It was a clumsy joke, but Evelyn, blinded by happiness, let it slide. They were going to be a family, a big, noisy, wonderful family. The first few months of the pregnancy were a blissful blur. Evelyn insisted on being Sarah's primary point of contact, texting her daily, asking about her symptoms, and sending care packages filled with comfortable maternity wear, prenatal vitamins, and organic snacks. She attended every doctor's appointment, her eyes welling up each time she saw her babies growing on the ultrasound monitor. She was the doctor, but in those moments, she was just the mother. Mark was supportive, but in a more detached way. He'd ask for the status report after each appointment. When Sarah experienced morning sickness, he sent a text. "Hope you're managing. Remember to stay hydrated for the babies." It was practical, not personal. Evelyn told herself it was just his way of coping with the lack of control, the fact that this monumental event was happening in someone else's body. As Sarah's belly swelled, so did Mark's controlling nature. The suggestions became directives. He sent Sarah a detailed list of approved foods, citing articles on fetal development. He questioned a weekend trip she planned to take to see her family, asking if the long car ride was advisable. "He's just anxious," Evelyn would tell her sister Jessica over the phone. "He wants everything to be perfect." Jessica, ever the pragmatist, was less convinced. Anxious or controlling, Ev? There's a fine line. He talks about Sarah like she's a high-end incubator. He's leased. Jess, that's not fair. Evelyn defended him, a knot tightening in her stomach. He's just processing this differently. He's all about protecting his investment. They're not an investment, Evelyn. They're your children. And Sarah is a human being, not a piece of equipment. Evelyn ended the call feeling defensive, but Jessica's words lingered. She started noticing things. The way Mark's jaw would clench when Sarah mentioned feeling tired. The time he'd referred to the nursery they were building as my legacy wing. Small things, tiny cracks in the perfect facade. But they were there. The baby shower was Evelyn's domain. She hosted it in their beautiful backyard, a sea of pastel balloons and delicate white roses. Sarah was the guest of honor, looking radiant in a blue maxi dress Evelyn had bought for her. Evelyn showered her with gifts, not just for the babies, but for her, a spa gift certificate, a cozy robe, a subscription box for new mothers. For when you need to recover and reclaim your own body, Evelyn whispered to her, squeezing her hand. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, Evelyn. You've been incredible. Mark mingled with the guests, accepting congratulations with a proud smile. He presented Sarah with a gift himself, a brand new top-of-the-line tablet. So you can keep us updated in real time, he announced to the room. And I've preloaded it with educational apps and classical music for the babies to listen to." The guests murmured in approval at his thoughtfulness. But Evelyn saw the look on Sarah's face, a flicker of discomfort at the public performative nature of the gift. It felt less like a present and more like another tool of surveillance. Later that evening, after everyone had left, Evelyn found a discrepancy while balancing her checkbook online. A charge for $800 at a high-end jewelry store, Rossi Fine Jewels. She didn't recognize it. "Mark," she called out. Her brow furrowed. "Did you buy some jewelry recently?" "There's a charge here from a place called Rossi's." He walked in, unbuttoning his shirt. He didn't miss a beat. "Oh, right. That was a client gift. Robert Henderson for his wife. Landed the Henderson tech account. It's huge. Had to send something impressive." It made sense. It was logical. Evelyn clicked the laptop shut, the unease dissipating. He was a good man. He was a thoughtful husband. She was just being paranoid, letting Jessica's cynicism get to her. She was 34 weeks pregnant, in a sense. Her babies were safe. Her husband loved her. Their perfect life was just on the horizon. She chose to ignore the cracks, unaware that the entire foundation was about to crumble. The final weeks of the surrogacy were a crescendo of anxiety and anticipation. The nursery was complete, 2 pristine white cribs standing side by side, a mobile of fluffy sheep dangling above them. Evelyn spent her evenings in there, folding tiny onesies. Her heart, a tangled mess of hope and a fear so profound it was almost paralyzing. What if something went wrong? What if she couldn't bond with them? Mark's behavior grew more erratic. The late nights at the office became more frequent. He'd come home smelling faintly of a perfume that wasn't Evelyn's, a scent he'd quickly cover by heading straight for the shower. When she asked, he'd blame it on a client dinner or a networking event. You know how it is, Ev. People hug, they get close. It's the business world. He became obsessed with the birth plan. He drafted a multi-page document detailing everything from the route to the hospital to who was allowed in the delivery room. He designated himself as the primary decision-maker, with Evelyn as the secondary. "Mark, this is insane," Evelyn said, scanning the document. "I'm an obstetrician. I think I know how a delivery works. And Sarah has a say in this too. It's her body. It's my baby's," he retorted, his voice sharp. "I'm not leaving anything to chance. Sarah's job is to deliver the product safely. My job is to manage the process." The word product struck Evelyn like a physical blow. They are not a product, Mark. They are our children. It's semantics, Evelyn. "Don't get emotional," he said, dismissively, turning back to his laptop. The conversation was over. It was Sarah who first felt the chill of Mark's true nature. He started calling her multiple times a day, his tone no longer friendly but demanding. One afternoon he called while she was at the park with her son Leo. "Where are you?" "I can hear wind," he demanded. "I'm at the park with my son Mark. He had a half day at school." "A park? Is it clean? Are you overexerting yourself? You shouldn't be walking so much. The doctor said you need to rest." "Mark, I'm sitting on a bench watching my child play. I'm fine. I think I know my own limits." "I'm not so sure you do," he muttered just before hanging up. The call left Sarah shaken. The partnership she had entered into with such hope was beginning to feel like a prison. She felt like a vessel, a piece of property. Her only solace was Evelyn, whose texts were always kind and respectful, always asking about her, not just the babies. The first major tremor happened 2 weeks before the scheduled C-section. Sarah called Evelyn, her voice trembling. "Evelyn, I'm sorry to bother you, but something strange just happened." Mark came by the apartment. Evelyn's blood ran cold. He came by. Why, he was supposed to be in a meeting downtown. He said he needed me to sign some updated legal forms from the lawyer. But they were weird. It was an addendum, something about postnatal contact. It basically said I would have no contact with you or the babies after the birth, and any attempt to initiate contact would be a breach of contract with severe financial penalties. What Evelyn was stunned. We never discussed that. Our agreement allows for photos and yearly updates. I promised you that. I know, Sarah said, her voice small. I told him that, and he got angry. He said you were too emotional, and that he was handling the exit strategy. He said it was for the best to ensure a clean break. Evelyn. He scared me. He kept staring at my stomach and talking about his son. His son, Evelyn repeated, confused. You mean his children? No. He kept saying my son. He asked if the boy was still positioned on the left side. It was so specific, so odd. I refused to sign it, and he stormed out. Evelyn hung up the phone, her hands shaking. His son? The baby boy was indeed on the left. The girl was on the right. Why would he fixate on the boy? And an exit strategy. It sounded like a corporate takeover, not the birth of a family. The lie about the meeting downtown was a glaring red flag she could no longer ignore. That night, when Mark was in the shower, Evelyn did something she had never done before. She went into his office and opened his laptop. It was password protected, but she knew the password, or thought she did. Evelyn and Mark forever. Access denied. She tried their anniversary. Denied. She tried the baby's due date. Denied. Her heart pounded in her chest. On a whim, driven by a sickening suspicion, she typed in a name from the past, a name Mark hadn't mentioned in years. Isabella 1. Access granted. The screen opened to his email. The world tilted on its axis. Isabella. Isabella Rossi. Mark's college girlfriend, the fiery, ambitious artist he'd dated before her. The one he'd always described with a wistful laugh as the one that got away. The emails were a year's worth of a hidden life. Passionate exchanges, plans for secret meetings, complaints about his cold, career-obsessed wife. But it was the more recent messages that made Evelyn feel like she was going to be sick. From Isabella. Is the plan still on, my love? I've found the most perfect little house in Santa Fe. I can just picture you and me and our little boy starting over. From Mark. The plan is firmly in motion. The asset is almost mature. Just a few more weeks of dealing with the carrier and my wife's incessant emotional drama. The doctor thinks she has everything under control, but she has no idea what's coming. I've already moved a significant portion of our liquid assets to an offshore account she can't touch. By the time she figures it out, we'll be gone. You, me, and our son. James. I've decided to name him James. James. The boy. The asset. The carrier. Evelyn stumbled back from the desk, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a sob. It wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy. He wasn't just cheating on her. He was planning to steal her money, steal her son and disappear. He was going to leave her with her daughter and a shattered life, likely framing it as a tragic loss, one twin not making it. The jewelry store, Rossi Fine Jewels, it hadn't been a client gift. It had been for Isabella Rossi. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. His obsession with the boy, the legal form to silence Sarah, his control over the finances. Her world wasn't just cracking. It had been built on a foundation of lies that was now dissolving into sand. For a moment she couldn't breathe. The air in the opulent house felt thick and suffocating. The nursery down the hall seemed like a cruel joke. She wanted to scream, to smash everything, to confront him as he walked out of the shower. But then the doctor in her took over. The cool, methodical mind that assessed a crisis and formulated a plan. Screaming would get her nowhere. He would lie, gaslight her, and accelerate his plan. He had called her emotional predictable. She would be the opposite. She would be clinical. She would be strategic. He had started this war, but she, Dr. Evelyn Hayes, was going to finish it. She wiped her tears, her grief solidifying into a cold, hard diamond of fury. She took out her phone and made 2 calls. The first was to her sister Jessica. "Jess," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "I need your help. Bring a bag. We have to go to the hospital, and I need you to find me the best divorce lawyer in Texas." The second call was to Sarah. "Sarah, it's Evelyn. I need you to listen to me very carefully. Pack a bag for yourself and Leo. I'm sending a car for you in 30 minutes. You're coming to the hospital. Your C-section is happening tonight." The game had changed. Mark thought he was the puppet master, but he had underestimated the 2 women he was trying to destroy, and he had no idea that the curtain was about to rise on the final act, not in a hospital room, but in a place so public his ruin would be absolute. The 2 days that followed were a masterclass in deception, orchestrated by a woman, fueled by adrenaline and righteous fury. At St. David's, Evelyn was in her element. She leveraged every ounce of her professional authority. She called in her most trusted colleague, Dr. Miller, and explained a redacted version of the truth. "There's a severe and credible threat to the children's safety from their father. I need to move up the delivery, and I need it done quietly." No one questioned Dr. Hayes. Sarah was admitted under a different name, placed in a private wing, with restricted access. Jessica stayed with her, a loyal sentinel, while Evelyn put the rest of her plan in motion. The C-section was smooth and flawless. At 11:42 p.m., a beautiful, healthy baby girl, Amelia, was born. 2 minutes later, her brother James arrived, his cry lusty and strong. Evelyn held them both, tears streaming down her face. But these were not the tears of pure joy she had imagined. They were tears of fierce, primal protection. She looked at these 2 perfect beings, her daughter and her son, and the cold diamond of her fury hardened. He would not have them. He would not break them apart. While Sarah recovered, Evelyn and Jessica became the baby's guardians. They fed them, changed them, and held them close in a secure room in the neonatal unit. Evelyn, using her own resources, hired a private security guard to station outside the wing. Meanwhile, she played the part of the anxious, expectant mother to Mark. He called her, his voice a mask of concern. "Any news from the carrier?" he'd ask. "No, everything's quiet." Evelyn would reply, her voice steady, as she looked at her sleeping son. "Just waiting. I'm getting so nervous. Don't worry, honey, I'm handling it." Just a few more days, he'd soothe the condescension dripping from his words. He had no idea the babies were already born. He had no idea Sarah was safely tucked away, having already signed an affidavit with a lawyer Jessica had found detailing Mark's coercion and his disturbing fixation on the male twin. He had no idea Evelyn had already been in contact with a forensic accountant who was gleefully uncovering the web of offshore accounts and illicit transfers. The trap was set. Now all Evelyn needed was the stage, and Mark, in his infinite arrogance, provided it himself. 2 days after the birth, he sent a text, going to meet with Sarah to give her the final payment and have her sign the last of the paperwork. A public place is best for these things. The Four Seasons restaurant, 2 p.m. Just tying up loose ends before our family can begin. You should take a spa day, relax. Evelyn's smile was grim. Perfect. He was going to dismiss the woman who gave him his children, cut her off, and then proceed with his plan to steal one of them. The public setting was meant to intimidate Sarah to perform his power one last time. He didn't know it was going to be the stage for his own downfall. Evelyn got ready with meticulous care. She chose a steel-grey power suit, her hair pulled back in a severe, elegant chignon. She looked less like a new mother and more like a CEO about to execute a hostile takeover. Jessica was with her, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and awe. "Are you sure you can do this?" Evelyn looked at her sister in the mirror, her own eyes like chips of ice. "He built this life on a lie. I'm just going to tell the truth, loudly." She had arranged for Sarah to be there. Sarah, still recovering but resolute, agreed without hesitation. She deserved to see this through. She would arrive 10 minutes before Mark and sit at a secluded table, waiting for her cue. At 1:50 p.m., Evelyn and Jessica walked out of St. David's Medical Center. Evelyn was not empty-handed. She pushed a state-of-the-art double stroller, a beautiful, ridiculously expensive model Mark had insisted on buying. Tucked securely inside, swaddled in soft blue and pink blankets, were James and Amelia. They were the bombshells she was about to detonate. The restaurant at the Four Seasons was an oasis of hushed elegance. Soft piano music trickled through the air, mingling with the clink of silverware on fine china. Businessmen in tailored suits and ladies who lunch occupied the plush banquettes. Mark was already there, seated at a prime table. And he wasn't alone. Across from him, sipping a glass of champagne, was Isabella Rossi. Her fiery red hair was a stark contrast to the muted tones of the restaurant. She was laughing at something Mark had said, her hand resting intimately on his. At a small table near the back, Sarah watched them, her heart pounding. She had arrived as planned and ordered a water. Now she was playing her part. She stood up and walked towards Mark's table, her expression one of polite confusion. "Mark?" she said, her voice just loud enough to be heard by the surrounding tables. "I'm here for our meeting." Mark looked up, his smile vanishing. Annoyance flickered in his eyes. He hadn't expected her to approach him while he was with Isabella. He stood up, a gesture meant to be dismissive, to block her from the table. "Sarah, I'll be with you in a moment." "Go wait by the bar," he said in a low, sharp tone. Sarah stood her ground. "The hostess said you were at this table." "I just thought—" Isabella looked from Mark to Sarah, her perfectly arched eyebrows raising in question. "Mark, darling." "Who is this Mark?" Let out an exasperated sigh, his face a mask of patronizing charm for Isabella's benefit. He gestured vaguely at Sarah. "It's nobody. She's just the surrogate." He then turned to the approaching waitress, a young woman named Chloe, with a name tag pinned to her crisp white shirt. Mark didn't even look at her. He waved a dismissive hand toward Sarah. "Don't serve her," he said, his voice carrying an unmistakable air of command and contempt. "She's just the surrogate. She won't be needing anything." The words hung in the air, thick and poisonous. The waitress froze, her eyes wide with shock. The couple at the next table stopped their conversation. Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. The public humiliation, the sheer cruelty of being rendered invisible, of being reduced to a function after everything she had been through, was staggering. She felt small, worthless, exactly as he intended her to feel. Isabella looked at Sarah's still recovering postpartum body, then back at Mark, a slow, dawning comprehension on her face. The surrogate Mark. What is this? But Mark never got to answer, because at that exact moment, the grand entrance of the restaurant opened, and in walked Dr. Evelyn Hayes. She was a vision of cold, righteous power. Her heels clicked with purpose on the marble floor. She wasn't crying. She wasn't hysterical. Her face was a placid mask of control. Pushed before her was the double stroller, a symbol of a reality Mark had no idea existed. She was followed closely by her sister Jessica, whose phone was held up discreetly recording everything. Evelyn navigated through the tables, her eyes locked on her husband. A ripple of confusion went through the room. Who was this formidable woman? Mark's head snapped towards the entrance. His jaw dropped. The color drained from his face, replaced by a ghastly, sallow panic. He looked at Evelyn, then at the stroller, then back at Evelyn. His mind, usually so quick, couldn't process the scene. It was impossible. Evelyn reached the table. She didn't look at Sarah, not yet. She didn't look at the waitress. Her gaze was fixed entirely on the two people seated before her. She stopped the stroller right beside Isabella, giving her a perfect view of the two sleeping infants inside. She offered a smile that was all teeth. It was terrifying. Isabella Evelyn said, her voice dangerously calm. "It's been a long time. I see you've met my husband." She paused, letting the words sink in. "And Mark, darling?" she continued, turning her icy gaze on him. "I see you're busy with your exit strategy." Mark was sputtering, trying to form words to regain control of a situation that was spiraling into a nightmare. "Evelyn? What? How?" "But I have to correct you on one small point," Evelyn went on, her voice rising just enough to capture the attention of the entire now silent restaurant. She gestured gracefully towards the brave, shaken woman standing beside the table. "You told the waitress not to serve her. You called her just the surrogate." Evelyn took a step closer, her eyes blazing. "This woman's name is Sarah Jenkins. She is not an object. She is not a carrier. She is the magnificent, selfless woman who carried my children, my son James, and my daughter Amelia." She pointedly looked at the two babies in the stroller, then back at a stunned Isabella. Both of them, she said, her voice ringing with clarity. Alive, healthy, and with their mother. She placed a firm, protective hand on her own chest. Me. The performance was over. The truth had been delivered. And the fallout was just beginning. The silence in the restaurant was absolute, a vacuum created by the implosion of Mark Thompson's life. Every eye was on their table, a tableau of betrayal and shock. Mark stared at the two babies, his face a mask of disbelief and horror. His plan, his meticulous, cruel plan, had been discovered and dismantled with surgical precision. Isabella Rossi was the first to break the spell. She looked from Mark's ashen face to the two infants, then to Evelyn's unyielding expression. The beautiful house in Santa Fe, the fantasy of a new life with a stolen baby, it all curdled in her stomach. "Our son," she whispered, her voice trembling with dawning revulsion. She turned on Mark. "You told me she couldn't carry a child. You told me the surrogate was for us. You said the other one wasn't viable." Mark flinched as if struck. "Isabella, listen to me." "No," she said, standing up so quickly her chair scraped loudly against the floor. She looked at Evelyn, her eyes filled not with malice, but with a strange, horrified pity. "I knew he was leaving his wife. I didn't know he was a monster." She grabbed her purse, her hands shaking. "Don't you ever contact me again," she hissed at Mark before practically fleeing the restaurant, leaving him alone to face the wreckage. Now Evelyn's full attention was on her husband. How Mark stammered his voice a pathetic croak. "How did you know?" "You underestimated me," Evelyn said, simply, her voice low and cutting. "You always have. You thought I was just the emotional, career-obsessed wife, too busy and too stupid to see the truth. But while you were planning your little getaway with my money and my son, I was doing my own work." She ticked off the points on her fingers, her voice clear and methodical like a doctor delivering a fatal diagnosis. "First, the finances. That jewelry you bought for your mistress, I found it. Then I hired a forensic accountant. He found the offshore account, Mark, the one in the Cayman Islands. He found the nearly $2 million you siphoned from our joint assets and my personal investments over the past 18 months. It's all documented. The authorities will be very interested to see it." Mark's face went from pale to greenish. Embezzlement. It was a word he used for his clients, not for himself. "Second." Sarah Evelyn continued now, gesturing to the woman who stood beside her, no longer a victim, but a witness. "You tried to intimidate her. You tried to legally gag her. But you forgot that she has a conscience. She told me about your bizarre fixation on the male twin, about your attempts to coerce her into signing that disgusting addendum. Her lawyer has her sworn affidavit. You don't have one witness against you, Mark. You have two." She paused, letting him absorb the weight of his predicament. The surrounding diners were shamelessly listening, their lunches forgotten. This was better than any soap opera. Jessica's phone remained steady, capturing every incriminating second. And finally, Evelyn said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, filled with all the pain he had caused her. "You thought you could break me by taking my son. You were going to tell me he died, weren't you? You were going to let me grieve for a child that was alive and well, living with you and that woman. You were going to leave me with my daughter Amelia, and hope I'd be too shattered to ever look deeper." She leaned in closer, her face inches from his. "Did you ever for 1 second stop to think about what that would do to a person? To the mother of your children? Or was I just collateral damage in the grand plan of Mark Thompson?" Mark had no answer. He could only stare, his world collapsing inward. The charm, the confidence, the arrogance, it had all been stripped away, leaving behind the small, pathetic man he truly was. Evelyn straightened up, her composure absolute. She turned to the stunned waitress Chloe, who was still standing nearby holding a water pitcher. Evelyn reached into her purse and pulled out a $100 bill. She pressed it into the young woman's hand. "I'm so sorry you had to witness that," she said kindly. "Please bring this woman," she said, placing a supportive hand on Sarah's arm. "Anything she wants from the menu. And a glass of your finest champagne. She has earned it." Then she turned back to her husband one last time. "The locks on the house have been changed. Your belongings are in trash bags on the curb. A restraining order will be served by the end of the day, ensuring you cannot come within 500 feet of me or my children. Your career, your reputation, that's for you to worry about. My lawyer, Mr. Davies, will be in touch with yours, if you even have one left after this." With that, she gave a slight nod to her sister. She turned the double stroller around, and with the same powerful, deliberate clicks of her heels, she walked away from the smouldering ruins of her marriage, leaving Mark Thompson utterly and completely destroyed in a room full of strangers. As she passed the bar on her way out, she saw Sarah had taken a seat. The waitress was already there, taking her order with a compassionate smile. Sarah looked up and met Evelyn's eyes. In that shared glance, a world of understanding passed between them. It wasn't just a victory for Evelyn. It was a victory for them both. An unspoken alliance had been forged in the fires of betrayal, a new unconventional family unit rising from the ashes of one man's deceit. Evelyn Hayes walked out into the bright Texas sun, not as a victim, but as a survivor, a mother and a woman who had just taken back her life. The aftermath of the spectacular implosion at the Four Seasons was not a whirlwind of chaotic emotion for Evelyn, but a period of methodical, chillingly calm demolition. The video Jessica had taken a silent, damning testament to Mark's public cruelty, and his panicked, sputtering confession was the legal equivalent of a nuclear weapon. Evelyn never had to face Mark again. Her lawyer, a formidable silver-haired man named Arthur Davies, handled everything. Davies convened a single meeting with Mark and his hastily assembled legal team. It was held in a sterile, wood-paneled conference room that felt like a funeral parlor. Evelyn was not present. She was at home, rocking her children. Davies, however, channeled her newfound steel. He didn't begin with pleasantries. He simply placed a tablet in the center of the vast mahogany table and pressed play. The video, silent and stark, played out. Mark's dismissive wave, the cruel words to the waitress, Isabella's horror, and Evelyn's grand, terrible entrance. They watched Mark's face crumble on screen, a real-time disintegration of a man who had lost control of his own narrative. When the video ended, Davies let the silence hang in the air for a full minute before speaking. That he said his voice quiet but carrying immense weight is the court of public opinion. It is also Exhibit A. He then slid a thick binder across the table. This is Exhibit B, a full forensic accounting report detailing the systematic embezzlement of $1.87 million from my client's personal and joint accounts into an offshore entity in the Cayman Islands, an entity, I might add, that lists Mr. Thompson as the sole beneficiary. He produced another binder. And this is Exhibit C, the sworn affidavit from Miss Sarah Jenkins detailing Mr. Thompson's campaign of coercion, his specific and disturbing fixation on the male infant, and his fraudulent attempt to alter a legal contract post facto to eliminate my client's contact with the gestational carrier. Mark's lawyers, who had likely taken the case assuming it was a standard, messy divorce, looked at their client with open disdain. Mark himself sat shrunken in his expensive suit, his face pale and clammy. He looked like a man who had been hollowed out, the arrogant shell removed to reveal nothing but weakness underneath. So here is what is going to happen. Davies continued his tone, leaving no room for negotiation. My client will not be pressing criminal charges for the embezzlement or the conspiracy to commit kidnapping. She has no desire for a protracted media circus that would affect her children. In return, Mr. Thompson will cede all claims to any and all marital assets, including the house. He will relinquish all parental rights immediately and irrevocably. His name will not appear on the birth certificates. He will agree to the permanent restraining order. He will walk away with the clothes on his back and the debts he has accrued. If any single point of this is contested, all 3 exhibits go directly to the district attorney's office and the Texas Medical Board. Are we in agreement? There was no argument. The fight was over before it began. Mark signed the papers with a trembling hand, his signature once a bold and confident scrawl, now a barely legible tremor. He walked out of that conference room, a non-entity erased from the life he had tried to viciously orchestrate. The whispers around Austin were immediate and brutal. The story in its juiciest, most dramatic form leaked from the restaurant staff and patrons. Mark Thompson wasn't just a cheat, he was a villain of operatic proportions. His clients abandoned him in droves. His firm fired him, citing a morals clause in his contract. He was socially and professionally radioactive. Within a month, he sold what few assets he had left, and vanished, rumored to have moved somewhere anonymous in the Midwest, a ghost haunted by the life he had torched so spectacularly. A week after the legal proceedings concluded, a thick cream envelope arrived for Evelyn. It was from Isabella Rossi's attorney. Inside was a typed formal letter of apology. Isabella claimed she was a pawn duped by a master manipulator. She wrote of her own struggles with infertility and how Mark had exploited that vulnerability, promising her the family she'd always craved. While my actions in participating in an affair were inexcusable, the letter read, "I hope you can believe that I was unaware of the truly monstrous nature of his plans for you and your children. I wish you and your beautiful family peace and healing." Evelyn read the letter twice. She felt no anger, no satisfaction, not even pity. She felt nothing at all. Isabella Rossi was a character from a different lifetime, a ghost from a story that was no longer hers. She folded the letter, slid it back into the envelope, and dropped it into the recycling bin without a second thought. That chapter was closed. Her focus was on the new life blooming within the walls of her home. The house, once so silent and pristine, was now a chaotic symphony of coos cries and the scent of baby powder. It was exhausting, overwhelming, and more wonderful than she had ever imagined. And at the center of this new world, an unexpected anchor had formed Sarah Jenkins. Evelyn had insisted Sarah take a full month to do nothing but recover all expenses paid. But after that month, she invited Sarah and Leo over for lunch. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken questions. They were no longer client and surrogate. What were they now? They sat in the sunny living room, the twins sleeping soundly in a bassinet nearby. Evelyn finally broke the silence. "Sarah, I've spent weeks trying to find the right words, and I've come to the conclusion that there are none. Thank you is too small. What you did for me, what you endured because of Mark. It's a debt I can never truly repay." Sarah, ever practical, shook her head. "Evelyn, you don't owe me anything. We both got out of a nightmare. And you've already given me the thing I wanted most, the security for my mom." "That was just the start," Evelyn said, leaning forward. "That was justice. This is about something else. This is about respect. Sarah, I have never met a person with more integrity or strength than you. What Mark did, trying to reduce you to a function, to an object, it was the most profound insult I have ever witnessed. I want to spend the rest of my life proving him wrong." She slid a folder across the coffee table. "I told you I set up a trust for your mother's care. It's done. She has a room at Oak Ridge waiting for her whenever you're ready. But this, she said, tapping the folder, is for you and Leo. I've spoken to an advisor. I want to set up a college fund for Leo, a substantial one. And for you, you mentioned once that you loved being a teaching assistant, but wished you could lead your own classroom. The University of Texas has one of the best education programs in the country. I want to pay for it. Your tuition, your books, a living stipend, so you can focus on your studies without financial worry. Sarah stared at the folder, her eyes wide with disbelief. She slowly shook her head, pushing it back towards Evelyn. I can't. Evelyn, it's too much. It feels like charity. I have my pride. I know you do, Evelyn said softly. That's why this isn't charity. This is an investment. I am investing in a brilliant, capable woman that I am proud to know. Think of it as a scholarship, the Dr. Evelyn Hayes Scholarship for Remarkable Women. You are its first and most deserving recipient. Please, Sarah, let me do this. Let this be part of the good that comes from the bad. Leo, who had been quietly playing with his action figures, seemed to sense the emotional weight in the room. He looked at the bassinet and then at his mom. Are James and Amelia going to know I was their tummy buddy's boy? He asked with the simple clarity of a child. The question broke the tension. A watery smile touched Sarah's lips. Evelyn's heart swelled. Yes, Leo. Evelyn said, her voice thick with emotion. They are absolutely going to know that. They're going to know you, and they're going to know your amazing mother for the rest of their lives, if you'll let us. Sarah finally looked up, tears shining in her eyes. She gave a small, shaky nod. Okay, Evelyn. Okay. That okay was the laying of a new foundation. Over the next year, the relationship blossomed into something beautiful and unique. Sarah wasn't just a friend. She was an integral part of their lives. She became Aunt Sarah, the one person who could soothe a colicky James when Evelyn was at her wits' end. She'd show up on a Tuesday night with takeout, having sensed from a text message that Evelyn was overwhelmed and would simply take one of the babies, allowing the exhausted doctor a moment to breathe. Evelyn, in turn, became Sarah's biggest cheerleader. She helped her with her university application proofreading essays and coaching her for the entrance interview. When Sarah was accepted, they celebrated with champagne, just as they had on that first day at the Four Seasons. But this time it was in Evelyn's kitchen, a toast to a future Sarah was building for herself. One brisk autumn afternoon, almost a year to the day of the incident, they were in the backyard. The twins, now babbling and crawling, were on a blanket on the grass. Leo was proudly showing them how to stack blocks. Evelyn and Sarah sat on the patio chairs watching. It's funny, Sarah said, her voice reflective. I remember being so scared that seeing them would hurt. A constant reminder of the pregnancy of Mark. Of everything. But it's not like that at all. What is it like? Evelyn asked gently. It feels like victory. Sarah said, a slow smile spreading across her face. Every time I see them smile, every time I see you with them so happy and so completely in your element, it feels like we won. We took the thing he tried to destroy and turned it into this. She gestured at the peaceful, happy scene before them. We did, Evelyn affirmed, reaching across to squeeze her hand. He thought he could isolate us, pit us against each other. He never imagined we would choose to stand together. She looked at her children, her heart full of a love so fierce and profound it eclipsed every memory of pain. I spent years dreaming of a perfect family. I had this image in my head, a loving husband, 2 kids, a beautiful house. The whole package. I got the kids and the house, but the life I have now, it's nothing like the one I dreamed of. She turned to Sarah, her eyes shining with gratitude. It's so much better. It's real. It's built on truth and respect, not on secrets and lies. He wasn't the missing piece of my life, Sarah. He was the obstacle to it. The old dream had died in the fire of Mark's betrayal. But from those ashes, something stronger and more authentic had grown. A family defined not by blood or by contract, but by choice, by courage, and by the unbreakable solidarity of 2 women who had faced the darkness together and walked out into the light, hand in hand. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a husband's betrayal. It was a story of a woman's incredible rebirth. Dr. Evelyn Hayes could have become a victim of her husband's cruelty, but she chose to become the architect of her own justice. She reminds us that true strength isn't the absence of pain, but the courage to fight through it, to protect what matters most, and to rebuild on your own terms. The most powerful twist wasn't the affair or the secret plot. It was the unexpected bond forged between Evelyn and Sarah. 2 women who turned a moment of shared trauma into a lifetime of shared family. Their story is a powerful testament to resilience, integrity, and the idea that sometimes the family you choose is stronger than the one you thought you had. If Evelyn's story of strength and survival moved you, please give this video a like and share it with someone who needs to hear a message of hope. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more true stories that matter. What would you have done in Evelyn's shoes? Let us know in the comments below.